5.4 learning activity, the end of the World War. The first conference that occurred actually during World War II was called the Yalta Conference. You'll see right there the big three, Winston Churchill, FDR, and Stalin, all sitting there. This was in February of 1945. Of course, by then, Hitler was on the retreat, and the United States was island hopping towards Japan. Yalta's in modern-day Ukraine, right near the USSR. Stalin never wanted to go far away from the Soviet Union. When they met there, they decided some important things about the end of the war. They decided that once defeated, Germany would be divided into four. They decided that elections would be held in Eastern Europe, where currently the USSR's military was at, and the USSR promised to declare war on Japan 3 months after European war was over. Now, those things are pretty important because Germany would eventually be divided into four. Elections would not be held in Eastern Europe. The Soviet Union refused to allow that, and the United States was heavily influenced to not allow the Soviet Union to get into the war in the Pacific. Here's a map of the planned division of Germany. You'll notice that the red portion is the Soviet Union's, the orange is the United States. France gets the area in blue right by France, and Great Britain would get the northern portion closest to it. The Potsdam Conference, this was in July, late July, early August of 1945, was held in Potsdam, Germany. This is after Germany had been defeated after Victory in Europe Day, which was May 8th. However, FDR was dead. Churchill defeated in the election, actually during the conference. Stalin was the only one left from Yalta. They had Harry S. Truman from the United States, Clement Attlee from Great Britain, and Joseph Stalin was the only guy left. So again, they were meeting to get even more specific about Germany's split and the Soviets' intentions to declare war on Japan after they were defeated. However, as you can tell, since there were two sort of newbies and Stalin was the old veteran, it's oftentimes hinted that he just bullied him, and he decided that he was not going to allow any sort of elections in Eastern Europe. He's afraid of another attack from the West, just like in World War I, just like in World War II, and even 100 years earlier when France had led by Napoleon had invaded the Russian borders multiple times, just 3 times. They had, in the last 150 years, they had been completely dominated and completely devastated by an attack from Western Europe. They wanted to prevent it again, and if they had countries in to the east of them, to the west of them, protecting them from the West, then they wouldn't get attacked again. So there's the original Big Three and the new Big Three. After World War II, the United States decided to begin and be involved in some international organizations. International means of many nations, between nations. The United Nations is the biggie. It's the big one. There was 50 countries that met in San Francisco in June of 1945. Again, this is placed before the Potsdam Conference, but after World War II was over in Europe. This was basically a new international peacekeeping organization that would oppose war, defend the dignity of people, uphold equal rights, respect treaties and international law. They had many other sort of goals, like the equality of men and women, and they promised basically to work together to end any sort of aggressions by aggressor nations. The difference between this and the League of Nations were many, but the major difference was that the United States was involved and each member nation contributed military personnel. So they actually had a military to enforce. If you recall, the League of Nations complained but did nothing. The United Nations would complain and they would have a military ready to roll. A couple other things are monetary, or they have to do with the economy. The IMF, or the International Monetary Fund, oversees exchange rates because the value of the dollar versus value of the yen and value of the pound changes all the time. Modern day, there is no pound today. It's the euro, as all of Europe, most of Europe is under one currency or uses one currency. The World Bank was initially created as a place to countries would donate to the World Bank, and they would lend. The World Bank itself would lend money to the countries that needed to rebuild after this devastating war. After they have been, after the countries were rebuilt, they basically, their main operation today is to lend money to decrease poverty and hopefully end some sort of famine throughout the world. The legacy of World War II. The legacy, of course, means it's sort of legend. It's ongoing things, the things that occur because of it. In the United States, ever since World War II, there's been larger government control of the economy. Council of Economic Advisors was started right after World War II. Basically, this is sort of an example that shows you how important this becomes. Suddenly, there's a whole group of people that the president can turn to discuss economic measures because the president has more economic power. The Federal Reserve, which began under Woodrow Wilson, began to take more actions to raise or lower the interest rate and began to fiddle with the economy significantly more after World War II than they ever previously had. Many New Deal and World War II government institutions continued to regulate major parts of the economy. If you think about the Tennessee Valley Authority, Social Security Act, and Social Security Administration, the Securities and Exchange Corporation, the FDIC, all of these things are from the New Deal. World War II continued to have some voluntary measures between companies and the government, like the Ad Council is a bunch of advertising companies that still are in existence today. Crash Test Dummies are some guys that they started, right? Now, this is sort of a middle-of-the-road approach. Many countries, like the Soviet Union, have a government-controlled economy. And some countries have a completely absent government from the economy, like the United States did previously. But the United States takes sort of a middle road. We're not pure capitalist, and we're not pure, socialist, but we're a middle of the road where there's a lot of government guidance. The United States military takes a significantly larger role in the United States government and everyday life. After World War II, the military expands. After World War I, it actually contracted significantly. 1920s and 1930s, during the Roaring '20s and the Great Depression, there was not very many military personnel. After World War II, because of the Cold War and other things, the military got a lot bigger. Industries linked to the military continued to grow as the military had an appetite for more advanced military weapons. An important social part of World War II was the focus of the civil rights after World War II. The United States fought a war against a controlling government that killed millions of Jews in the Holocaust. And the racism, the rampant racism, blatant rampant racism of Germany sort of outlined or highlighted the questions that many African Americans had as they looked for their double victory, their victory at home against Jim Crow and the victory abroad against the Nazis. Many African Americans, for example, recognized their gains in employment experience, the military, and the actual movement of the Great Migration into more opportunistic cities like Detroit gave them a lot of momentum for the civil rights movement. Also, during World War II, there's a lot of African American unions, so they already had the infrastructure and the groups to sort of start protesting and trying to enact political change. Latino and Native Americans also participated in the economy and the military during World War II. So again, what they gained is opportunity and experience. The United States' foreign policy, its standing in the world is significantly different after World War I than before. Isolationism, dead. It's been dead ever since Pearl Harbor. Appeasement of Hitler led to World War II. So the U.S., among others, did not wish for that to occur again. So the United States, through the United Nations and other factions like NATO, have acted sort of like a police force to try to ensure that there'll never be another World War II. World War II was a pretty dramatic war. Lots of deaths, lots of change. The home front changed significantly. Many people died, and sort of the format of the entire world was different.